and we were so excited. I just want to preface this video with saying I do enjoy Black Ops 4. For what it is, I think Black Ops 4 is a fun game. There is fun to be had on the game. But obviously with that fun, there's also a plethora of problems. So I hope you guys can sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Thank you. I don't want to speak for everyone, but as a Call of Duty fan, and particularly a Zombies fan, I'm disappointed. The countless promises that were given to us by Treyarch themselves, many promises that were given day one of the reveal event, all were thrown away as the year progressed. I want to break down this video into 3 parts. The first being features, second, replayability, and third, new story. These 3 parts will go into explaining the meaning of the title, Broken Promises. The features that Black Ops 4 added had many, including me, think that they were changes just to change something. Now, let's start off with one of the most obvious changes added into Black Ops 4. Create a class. I dislike Create a Class. Many people may be wondering why, but I've had the thought process that more freedom for the player is better for most of my life. This, however, changed around the time of Black Ops 4's release. I started to believe that I was wrong in that assumption. This is because after playing Black Ops 4 for just a week, I started to realize that I cared less and less about what perks I bring in, being that the perks themselves lack any semblance of personality, and when later on they adjusted all players' health to start at 200, essentially giving you a jug for just spawning in. Now, I didn't make this video to flame Treyarch, but what was going through their heads? They want to get rid of crutch perks. I get it, I do. But why make the game so easy right off the bat and give you Jug, an infinite damage specialist, which is a whole nother thing, and on top of that still have Gobblegums as an option? This is not innovation, this is reinventing. And there's a big difference being that we have always had specialist weapons. We've always had, like, perk choices. We've always had, like, Gobblegums. But they've always just changed it in a small, minute way, usually making it worse. For example, with specialist weapons, now you're just giving them to you right at the start, and you get to pick which one, which to me also makes them less special, in the sense of like, oh, I'm gonna hop on Drak because I want to use the Ragnaroks. I'm gonna hop on Zetsubo. One of the few reasons a lot of people go on Zetsubo was because the Skull was such a good specialist weapon. It was a fun specialist weapon until they nerfed it later on. But still, I think you all get my point. The creative class, I would argue, ended up creating less creativity, being that we were restricted to only 4 perks. So if you went down mid-game, you couldn't go switch it out if you wanted to. Only 4 Gobblegums compared to the 5 we had in Black Ops 3. And an unearned specialist that just didn't seem special anymore. Pardon my pun. Now, I'm not saying that creative class in general is bad. Quite the opposite. It's mainly because Black Ops 4 creative class is bad. Black Ops 3 had actually a pretty good creative class. Like Black Ops 3, for example, did it very well. You could customize weapons, but not make them almost overpowered with certain, like, specialist attachments like they had in Black Ops 4. Which, granted, sometimes could be fun, but made a lot of guns just plain better than others. And I think that those sort of differences in guns should be saved for Pack-a-Punch. Like, for example, the Stingray. That weapon, when added with the extra attachment, specialist attachment, you get explosive bullets when firing. So, it's interesting to not have that in Pack-a-Punch, which would make it way better, because I think that's something Zombies has missed for a long time. That Pack-a-Punch being special, being an actual Pack-a-Punch. Now, I would like to propose a solution to at least one part of creative class. And I would like them to do something similar to this. And obviously this would make a lot of extra work for the developers. But I think if they did this, it would add a lot more like depth and almost like personality to certain maps. I would like them have the same thing where you could pick your specific specialist or like specialist like weapon and whatever, but only for that specific map is there a different specialist each time. And I think it'd be really neat if they did something where like there were 4 different types, like elements, sort of thing. Like for example, Dresendrak with the Ragnaroks. For example, there can be obviously the regular electric Ragnarok. There could be a water Ragnarok, something like that. And that can have people in your group, they can identify with one specific Ragnarok and like, oh, I love the, so water Ragnarok, so I'm going to do that one. So I think that'd be a very interesting concept for them to maybe experiment on, maybe. Obviously, like, they could even do it to where, like, with one map and just not do it with the others just to see how people like it and see if they can do it with the amount of time they're given, because it's Call of Duty. They're not given a lot of time. So I think that'd be an interesting solution, and with perks, I just don't think you should have the perk system they had in Black Ops 4. Speaking of immersion, the HUD. Oh boy, this is going to be juicy. It takes me completely out of the game, seeing all these different options on my screen that don't need to be that spread out. Just look at all these. They're all fan-made and look so much better. I'll let them pan right now. Now, then there's this Black Ops 4 HUD. What is this? I can't see my screen. Now, I won't dawdle on the HUD issue for too long because most people have already beaten it to death. So, onto the major part of the game features, the ones that never came. Let's count a couple, shall we? Number 1, constant support through the years in terms of rewards and updates. Number 2, an achievement badge system. Number 3, factions. Wait, factions? What's that? Okay, let me just get my papers here. Yeah. Okay. Oh! That's what it is. Oh, well, that sounds great! What happened to it? Did it release Operation 1? No? Operation 2? No? Operation 3? No? But seriously, factions sounded great. It sounded new and interesting, but alas, we'll never know. Unless, of course, BO5 has it. But hey, in Black Ops 4, I can be an alien. Anyway, there may be, and most likely are, more features I haven't covered, but time to move on.
So we're going to provide you with customizable tools and social systems to evolve zombies into an evergreen mode for daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly engagement.
So, was it true? On paper, Black Ops 4's replayability is high, having Gauntlet Mode, Rush, and Mutations. Granted, not all of those at the start. But many of these features are surprisingly brief in their enjoyability. In my opinion, obviously. For example, Gauntlet Mode is, I think, really fun, but it forces you to use horrible weapons and certain playstyles that just aren't fun, such as only using the SX model, which is an awful and very unfun gun, or having to stay in a certain area and camp, or even unpack a bunch of your weapons on like places like Voyage out of nowhere, and you don't know these until you actually get to them because they're mysteries. I think there's many ways to improve upon this, but I don't want to dawdle too much on this. But yeah, there's a lot of problems with Gauntlet Mode. It's fun, but there's a lot of problems. On to Rush. Rush Mode is fun with friends and to compete against each other, but in solo, I have always felt that this game mode lacked a lot. Never felt rewarding, and you gain points for really no reward. And speaking of rewards, Easter eggs are a great one, right? But even after completing them, you can't attempt those Easter eggs while in mutation mode, which is just stupid and one of the biggest problems with mutations. The thing with not being able to complete it in mutations mode is that what's the point of even doing it, like using mutations mode, if you can't do stuff like test with Easter eggs, if like you did it with only dogs or something like that, how that would be. What's the point of even having it if you can't do that? I understand it's a balancing thing. They don't want that people just complete Easter eggs like that. But how about this? Have it locked until you complete the Easter egg, and then you can complete it in Mutations. Mutations has a problem I think most sandbox type modes have, being that they get boring quickly. Being able to do what you want within the game. For example, a weird example, but Disney Infinity. Which was Skylanders, but sandbox. The problem with this freedom was that it got boring, being able to do whatever you want. So over time, just seeing the same thing, and you're just doing the same thing, because obviously you tend to do the thing you used to think is the most fun, that thing that was originally fun ends up becoming not fun. The problem with this freedom, obviously, is it gets boring to do whatever you want. The positives of Mutations was that you could make the game more challenging, which can be fun, or with it you can create fun challenges. I think one improvement that would be great to Mutations is a community tab to download community-made game modes. Alongside this, Treyarch could also make their own preset modes based off of the community-made challenges. Treyarch could have a pre-made 2-box challenge, limiting no wall weapons and only 2 hits per game. I think this would have enhanced the experience and increased the amount of people who play Mutations, which, to me, I think was almost 0 to none. Also, allow for us to do Easter eggs after completing them once outside of Mutations, so we could do more challenges completing Easter eggs. The replayability that was promised to us before the game even released never came through, at least in my eyes.
10 years after it all began, we're about to begin a brand new chapter in the zombie story right here.
I know I already made a video about this, and if you want to see that, I'll put it in the beginning of the video. You can check that out. But I still want to preface this because obviously you can't talk about Black Ops 4 without talking about chaos. I want to get into explain the problems this new story brought about. I actually liked the chaos story for what it was. A new world and COD zombies with obvious similarities to the Ether story, being stuff like wall buys and other gameplay stuff that goes with story, but with many new additions: Prima Materia, Blightfathers, Catalyst, and ancient gods and mythologies. Which isn't really new, it's kind of an Ether, whatever, just to name a few. Now, I'll go over what I like first, so that those who also enjoy the story a bit can get their due. The things I like with the story begins on Voyage of Despair, and yes, I know Voyage relating to positivity, that never happens. Nevertheless, I adore the atmosphere of this map, although I get the criticisms that the atmosphere could have been better. Looking at you, Mr. Lexfi. Like adding screams of the passengers, or to show the despair, pun intended, of the Titanic tragedy more. Where many didn't like this map, I enjoyed the layout and gameplay, although I'll save that for a future video. The greatness that I see in Voyage of Despair is the feel of the map. As soon as you spawn in, you see the ship crash into the iceberg, shaking your screen just as the boat shakes from the damage it had just caused. Then our characters realize that the ship itself is as if it's frozen in time, and all the passengers have turned into zombies. Then, they have to align the planets and shoot them down and fight Big Eye Guy. Yeah, I know, dumb joke, sorry. The detriment of this part of the story is the Easter egg. Like, what are we even doing trying to shoot down the freaking planets? I will admit, the boss fight is really cool, albeit weird that we fight the literal iceberg. But the main negative of the Easter egg is the final cutscene, being that it lacks any emotion of the passengers of the ship, and all it provides to us in terms of lore is that the next map would be Delphi. Wait, what's this?
Stick close. Something tells me we're gonna need each other.
Yeah, this one caught a lot of us by surprise. Well, if it wasn't leaked earlier, before it came out, but, funny enough, also caught Jason Blundell by surprise, being that he originally planned for Dead of the Night to be before the release of the map 9, but couldn't because of celebrity agreements. To be honest, there isn't much new story here, just really backstory stuff. Like just a little extra tying some loose ends that we didn't know sort of thing. Which should be expected in a prequel. So yeah, the story tells us where Alistair was originally kidnapped, and how and why Scarlet sought out our 4 heroes, quote unquote. The next map after Voyage was 9, and weirdly, the only story besides some side Easter eggs was that we were able to go back in time and die, being that we just take the place of someone in history. We also learned about the symbols for a door we need for our next journey. Speaking of, let's check it out, shall we?
Behold the great and mighty city of Delphi.
Ancient Evil, the Diet Origins, as some people call it. I actually really like this map. Sad that it's in the BO4 system, but there's nothing to be done about that. On to the story. We get introduced to a few new characters after we open the door to the real Delphi, using the codes we obtained from 9. We are then introduced to the Oracle, or Medusa, but they figure out that out later. We also find Perseus, our antagonist for the map, which I really enjoyed his presence in the map. I think he was a fun and interesting character, and albeit a bit gruesome. Moving on. The main things we learn in this map is that Alistair is trapped in the city. Oh, and did I mention that Bruno just kills Shaw?
Kill him, Bruno. Make him ours.
Bruno? What are you doing? No! Please! God! Bruno!
Yeah, that was unexpected. We then, after completing the egg, find out that the Oracle betrayed us, and was Medusa all along. Scarlet faints, and Alistair's stone body disappears. Yep, that's it. That's where we left off, on a cliffhanger. One that I might say had potential, but is squandered because we'll probably never see those characters and story ever again. If the Cold War Zombies teaser is any indication, or even now, the trailer and reveal is any indication, we obviously are not coming back to Chaos. The main point about talking about the story is to show the unfocused mess BO4 was. It didn't know which story to focus on, Ether or Chaos, and in that decision, I think both stories suffered. Chaos was left unfinished, and Ether felt slightly rushed. So, we're finally here. You made it through the video, and I thank you for it. I hope you all did enjoy my perspective of the game, and I would like to leave it on a more positive note. BO4 may have been a troubled game, but personally, the extremely small bit of gameplay we saw for Cold War Zombies has left me very intrigued and hopeful for the future. And I can't wait to get my hands on the game in under a month and to make videos for you guys. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you all so much for watching. Check out my other videos with the annotation on the screen. And drop a like, subscribe, and I hope you all have a better tomorrow.